Okay, this is a talk through on the actual sewage pump. So the control panel once again is here. Normal position is in automatic. Until you get to the high level, the automatic cuts off. You can override the automatic with the on switch here. The red light will come on like this, and then it'll override the automatic. But if you override the automatic, then you're in danger of flooding the shower compartment here, because the overflow for the sewage tank is up in this corner here, which needs to be altered at the next refit. The other items in here are the pressure gauge, which is up here, which indicates that we've got good vacuum on the system, and that wants to be about where the red mark is. If we start losing the vacuum or it starts leaking, then it means that the system is losing its vacuum, and it can be either through a toilet, and you can hear that in the toilet leaking, or there is a leak somewhere else in the system, quite possibly through the flap valve here, which I'll explain to you later on. So that's the on-off switch. Each toilet area can be isolated. So this area here is isolates the forward toilet. This one isolates the three toilets directly above you, the 1, 2, 3 by the saloon, and this one over here isolates the captain's toilet and also the crew toilet in the aft. So you've got isolation valves there. So basically servicing occasionally this pump, you need to take the cover off here. There is a drain plug underneath here that you can drain the system before you take it out, and then you can decalcify the inside of there and the macerator. Another area that tends to get clogged up is this area here, so it's quite a good idea to take this pipe out, just dismantle it here, undo the Jubilee clips there, clip off these here, and that will give you a possibility of dismantling this area. The other thing that goes occasionally is you will find that the actual motor here, the brushes go occasionally on the motor, and they can be replaced with there you just heard the pump cut in, and you can see the pressure is good. So here we have a spare set of brushes for the motor, and we also have a spare plastic flapper valve for the pump down here. So those are the spares. This item here is a device we fitted to help prime the pump, and you will notice that when the pump comes on, the little light comes on which opens this valve, but it is closed off up here. So if you do service it and you want to prime the pump, then you need to open that valve, and that will refill the pump with water before you start it. So those are the basic components of the pump, which fills this tank, which that area of things is covered by the SDP instructional thing. This item here is a fuse in case you short out the wires. This is a starting relay which occasionally goes wrong and needs to be replaced, and I think we are carrying some spares on board in the sconce locker. And then over here the system is run by 24 volts, so we've got two batteries here and here, and a charger which trickle charges the batteries all the time, and that powers the system. And the off switch for that is in the cabinet on the other side of the corridor. So that is how the toilet works. It's a 24 volt DC motor. We carry a spare motor on the ship, and we also carry a set of gaskets for replacing and servicing the pump here. So that's that area. Just look at the toilets. When you remove a toilet, you have basically, in some toilets, you have an off valve that can be switched off, and we have blanking plugs that are for blanking off the toilet if you have to pull out a toilet and service it. And there are grey blanking plugs, and each toilet has a freshwater supply with an on-off tap, which is just a bit further up there, so you can isolate it. The other thing that the toilet has is the push button, which just pushes air down this little pipe, and that activates the toilet. So that is how the toilets work. They are on a vacuum system. We don't put toilet paper down the toilets so that they don't block up too often. So spares for the toilet are at the moment kept down in the side here. There's a whole bunch of spares for the toilet. They're held down in this locker down here, so those can be taken out to service the toilets. There's one very special tool that's worth knowing about, and I will show you that in a minute. Okay, now let's have a look at the actual toilet pump and what goes on in here. So what you have inside here is a macerator, which I'm not sure if you can see that, but that chops up all the sewage and pumps it out the other side. And then this valve here, which is the critical valve, is the valve that maintains the vacuum. So if this is worn or needs to be cleaned, this whole thing needs to be cleaned out probably once every 3 months, given a thorough cleaning, and replace this valve here as well. So that's what happens inside here. This is the macerator, and that is the vacuum valve. That's what maintains the vacuum inside the whole pump. So that's just looking at inside the pump. And then here the toilet, the back of the toilet here, basically you have the just put this back on here. You have the main water supply comes into this line here, and the actuator is fitted onto there. So that's where the plastic pipe goes on to operate the valve. And when that opens, it creates a suction which lifts all these valves here that can all be dismantled and looked at. And this is a non-return valve here, and then this is the chamber with the vacuum in it, and that large thing at the back there is what raises the chamber up. Now the most important tool in the workshop is this one here, which you'll see has got a nice little slot on it so that you can get it inside there and undo the nuts and bolts. So it's that tool there in the workshop that we use to dismantle the toilet. Okay, so that's the toilet pump removed, which shows you the rubber flange, which needs to have a good seal on it, but not too tight, and these two nuts. And as you can see, this is the tool that fits nicely onto those, so you don't have a problem dismantling it. And looking at the toilet, you can see you have the two slots, and so you don't have to completely undo the nut. You can just slacken them off, raise it up, and then pull the whole pump out. Once you've got the pump out, there are lots of different components. It can all be dismantled, but just a couple of things. One is that this little valve here, this little rubber thing, there are lots of these, and on each of these you have a number which is written. This one's a number 6, and this regulates the amount of water that is left in the pan after each flush. So if you need more water in the pan, then you just put a larger size, like or a lesser size, let's just say like 8 or 7 or 6. If you need less water in the pan, then you go for a 10, 11 or a 12. So that's worth knowing about that there. So basically this is the actuator here, which puts a vacuum to that area. It pulls back a plunger. The plunger is pulled back, and when the plunger is pulled back, water starts flowing into the toilet, as well as providing a vacuum to this, which actually raises up the rubber valve, which you can see inside the pump there. So that's what pulls the valve up, and then it has a few seconds before going back down again. So those are the main components. It's not complicated, just needs to be carefully dismantled. Try not to scrape the base here too much with a screwdriver, because you'll lose your suction. So it's better to just clean it off with some kind of cleaning compound, but not a screwdriver.